Hello, and welcome back to Fluent and Fearless. This is the podcast for professionals who want to communicate clearly, confidently, and effectively in English. I'm your host, Katherine Arthur, a pronounced speech and accent specialist. I'm a speech-language pathologist, an accent modification specialist, and a radio broadcaster. So you get 3 for the price of 1. And I'm here to make sure you get your money's worth. Now, on Fluent and Fearless, we talk about the real-world communication challenges that professionals face, especially when working in a second language. And I also deliver practical strategies that help you overcome these challenges. Today's episode, well, it's especially for healthcare recruiters who speak English as a second language. Healthcare recruiters, by the way, are people who are near and dear to my heart. I've worked with many of them during my career, and they're energetic, motivated, enthusiastic people. They have a job to do, and they do it well. There were a few healthcare recruiters who helped open doors for me when I wanted to advance my career as a speech-language pathologist, and I thank them for that. You know, healthcare recruiting is a fascinating and demanding profession. You're connecting medical professionals to healthcare organizations. You're coordinating employment interviews, explaining opportunities, and you're often guiding candidates through major career decisions. Healthcare recruiters oversee the entire recruitment process to make sure that hospitals, clinics, and other healthcare companies have qualified staff. And all of those responsibilities mean that communication is at the center of everything a healthcare recruiter does. And when English isn't your first language, well, even small pronunciation challenges can sometimes create unexpected obstacles. Now, let me ask you, if you're a healthcare recruiter who speaks English as a second language, how many times a day do you repeat the same sentence on the phone? Does that leave you frustrated sometimes? Well, let's fix that. In today's episode of Fluent and Fearless, we're going to talk about communication challenges that healthcare recruiters experience, why pronunciation clarity matters in recruiting conversations, and how accent modification strategies can help you communicate more efficiently and confidently. I'm Katherine Arthur, and stay with me on this episode of Fluent and Fearless. So picture this. You're a healthcare recruiter. You're on the phone with a physician who's the perfect candidate for your employment opportunity. Now you explain the opportunity, you describe the location of the opportunity, and you also review the salary range with your candidate. And then the candidate says, "Oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" For healthcare recruiters who speak English as a second language, this moment happens more often than people realize. So why does this happen? Well, there's the fast pace of healthcare recruiting. One thing that makes healthcare recruiting unique is its speed. Recruiters often conduct short screening calls that last 10 or 15 minutes. During that time, you might be explaining the employment position, the employer or healthcare facility, the compensation package, job duties, and the location. And that's a lot of information to deliver clearly in a short amount of time. If a candidate has to ask you to repeat several pieces of information, the conversation can start to feel rushed or awkward, even if your English is actually very strong. And this is where pronunciation clarity becomes extremely valuable. When keywords are easy to understand the first time, especially numbers, job titles, and locations, your conversations become smoother and more efficient. Another interesting challenge healthcare recruiters face is pronouncing medical specialties. As we already know, healthcare is full of long and complex words. Think about titles like anesthesiologist or gastroenterologist, otolaryngologist, cardiothoracic surgeon, and even speech-language pathologist. Even native English speakers sometimes hesitate when pronouncing these words. For professionals who speak English as a second language, the challenge often comes right down to word stress and syllable rhythm. English listeners depend heavily on stress patterns to recognize words quickly. For example, in the word gastroenterologist, certain syllables are emphasized more strongly than others. And when the stress pattern is clear to your listener is going to recognize the word much faster, even if your accent is still present. And that's where accent modification is helpful because accent modification training focuses on breaking long words into smaller rhythm groups, and that makes them easier to pronounce consistently. And that's also something that I teach my clients very successfully every day. Another surprisingly common challenge for healthcare recruiters who speak English as a second language, that would be place names. Healthcare recruiters constantly mention cities and hospitals, and American place names can be, well, unusual. For example, Louisville, Kissimmee, Worcester, Des Moines. And here in Michigan, where I'm from, things can get really interesting. We have cities named Charlevoix, Menominee, Ypsilanti, Sebewaing, Charlotte. And if you pronounce those words exactly the way they're spelled, they often sound different from how Americans actually say them. So recruiters sometimes find themselves repeating the same location multiple times. And that's where pronunciation training can help. Accent coaching can help you develop strategies for things like this: mastering difficult consonant clusters, simplifying complex syllables, and learning the pronunciation patterns that occur frequently in American place names. And these are things you can't learn from a YouTube video. You need genuine human interaction. Now, another area where pronunciation can affect communication is negotiation conversations. Recruiters frequently discuss topics like salary, contract terms, and relocation, work schedules, and sign-on bonuses. These conversations require confidence and authority. But if someone feels unsure about how a particular word will sound, they might start to do these things. They'll speak faster, they'll simplify their explanations, or they might avoid certain phrases. And this is something I see often in accent coaching. When professionals improve pronunciation clarity, something interesting happens. Their confidence during complex conversations increases dramatically. Not because they've changed who they are, but because they no longer have to think about how every single word will sound. Now, there's also a very practical benefit to pronunciation clarity in recruiting because recruiters make many calls every day. And if information needs to be repeated frequently, it slows down the workflow. But when your speech rhythm, stress patterns, and the clarity of your consonants and your vowels are all working together, conversations tend to move much more efficiently. And candidates will understand the key details that you're trying to tell them much faster. And the interaction feels much smoother for both you and your candidate. Now, here's what accent modification actually focuses on for healthcare recruiters. Sometimes people will hear the term accent modification and imagine that it means eliminating their accent entirely, but that's not the goal. You really can't do that. Accents are a natural part of language. Accent coaching, that focuses more on clarity and efficiency. So in accent modification coaching, we typically work on things like vowel precision, consonant clarity, syllable stress, sentence rhythm, and pacing, among other things. And when those elements improve, communication becomes easier, even if your natural accent remains. So for healthcare recruiters who speak English as a second language, are there things that they can do to improve their communication skills on the phone? Well, here's a very simple exercise that healthcare recruiters can try. Take 3 common phrases that you use during phone calls. For example, I'm calling about a hospital opportunity. Or, this position is located in rural Michigan. Now, rural is a very hard word to say for me, and I've worked in rural Michigan, so I've said it a lot. Or a third thing that recruiters might commonly say is the salary ranges between $200,000 and $300,000. Now, practice saying these phrases slowly and clearly, focusing on the stressed words. Now, in English, important words are usually slightly longer, louder, and more clear. Practicing this rhythm helps your listeners process your message more easily. So if you work in healthcare recruiting and English is your second language, here's something important to remember. You're already doing something impressive. You're building professional relationships, managing complex conversations, and helping healthcare organizations find the professionals that they need. And one more reminder, accent modification is not about changing who you are. It's about making sure your communication reflects your expertise and your professionalism. Clear speech allows your skills and your confidence to come through, and that's what being fluent and fearless is all about. And with that, this is Katherine Arthur, and thank you for joining me for today's episode of Fluent and Fearless. Feel free to share this with your colleagues and other professionals who speak English as a second language in the workplace. And if there's a communication challenge you'd like me to discuss in a future episode, I would really love to hear from you. You can very easily contact me through my website at pronouncespeech.com. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to speak directly to those of you who speak English as a second language. If you've ever worried about your pronunciation or felt held back because of how you sound, please know this: I'm here to help you. My goal is for you to become fluent and fearless, and I know you can get there. Working on your speech or pronunciation does not mean that your accent is a problem, not at all. It means that you value clear, confident communication. It means you're investing in yourself. Accent modification or pronunciation training is about empowerment, and your voice certainly matters. Your ideas matter too. And when you can share them without hesitation, without worry, or without embarrassment, you're free to focus on what really counts. And what really counts is connecting with people, building relationships, and showing up as your full, authentic self. So whether your goal is career growth, greater confidence in everyday conversations, or both, accent modification can give you the advantage that you're looking for. If you're ready to explore what accent modification can do for you, visit pronouncespeech.com. There you'll find all the information you need about pronounced speech and accent specialists, and you can book a free assessment with me at no cost and no obligation. My free assessments are a relaxed conversational way for you to learn how accent modification might support your goals. Again, pronouncespeech.com. Now, with all of that in mind, get out there and turn your spark into a flame. And be sure to connect with me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Pronounced Speech and Accent Specialists. I'm Katherine Arthur. Remember, that's Katherine with a K, so you can look me up on LinkedIn and connect with me. I'd really like that. You'll find out that on all my social media, I share lots of practical advice for improving your communication skills at work and in your social life. And guess what? All of that practical advice, it's free. So look me up on social media. Again, Katherine Arthur here. Until next time, keep speaking clearly, confidently, and fearlessly. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time on Fluent and Fearless.